We want to welcome everybody for joining us today. This is our, I don't know how long it's been, but it's our annual host agency meeting, and we're hoping that this will be something that we can do something or do this on at least an annual basis, but hopefully twice a year at minimum. And so today we are taking the time as a CSEP staff to get with our current host agencies, as well as any potential host agencies, about the possibility of becoming a partner and just kind of a refresher of what the CSEP program is. Again, this is it is 12/15/2022. We are recording this video, so we will be putting this on our CSEP webpage on our M4A website. So if you need to get to this at a later date, it will be there, as well as on our YouTube channel, and we will be sharing this in our newsletter. So this is our host agency meeting for the CSEP program. So just as a refresher, if you're not familiar with what CSEP is, the Senior Community Service Employment Program, or CSEP, is a community service and work-based job training program for older Americans, authorized by the Older Americans Act. The program provides training for low-income, unemployed seniors. Participants also have access to employment assistance through the American Job Centers. CSEP participants gain work experience in a variety of community service activities at nonprofit and public facilities, including schools, hospitals, daycare centers, and senior centers. The program provides over 40 million community service hours to public and nonprofit agencies, allowing them to enhance and provide needed services. Participants work an average of 20 hours a week and are paid the highest of federal, state, or local minimum wage. This training serves as a bridge to unsubsidized employment, job opportunities for the participants. And if you guys noticed, it was specific to 20 hours. And as you know, a lot of our participants right now are currently receiving 29 hours. That is the current rate as part of the COVID authorization that the federal allowed us to do. That is something that eventually we might be leaning back towards the 20 hours. At this time, we have no authorization to do that. But if and when that decision is made by the Center for Workforce Inclusion and the Department of Labor, that will be information that we definitely make sure that our host agencies are aware of ahead of time so that we can plan for that. And again, unfortunately, that's not really something that we have control over. That is, the Department of Labor and Center for Workforce Inclusion. That is completely their oversight there, and we just kind of abide by the rules the best we can. So as far as CSEP, that is the CSEP program. So who is eligible? We sort of briefly described it in that description there, but in more detail, participants must be at least 55, unemployed, and have a family income of no more than 125% of the federal poverty level. Enrollment priority is given to veterans and qualified spouses, then to individuals who are over 65, have a disability, have low literacy skills or limited English proficiency, reside in a rural area, are homeless or at risk of homelessness, have low employment prospects, or have failed to find employment after using services through the American Job Center system. And then obviously too, as well as this, it is based on our local waiting list. That is one thing that we try to improve every day. And I think that at this point, I think all of our CSEP staff members can agree that the largest success that we've seen with our program is word of mouth. And a lot of our host agencies have been very vital in that and getting the information about this program out to the community. So, you guys are not only a partner as a sponsor for a host agency for participants to do job training at, you're also kind of a means for us to be able to tell others in the community about this program. So anytime you're marketing on our behalf, we really do appreciate it, and we're thankful for that. And it makes a huge difference. So who funds CSEP? I briefly touched on the federal aspect. Like I said, the CSEP program was authorized through the Older Americans Act, and that funding is sort of filtered through the Department of Labor, who distributes money to the Center for Workforce Inclusion, as well as our state partner, the Alabama Department of Senior Services, which is who we work directly with the Department of Senior Services to administer many of their programs, regardless of the funding stream, whether it be federal, state, local. But we also partner with the Center for Workforce Inclusion on the federal level here as well. So most of you guys that are here with us today are what we consider to be a host agency. So we're going to go a little bit about what a host agency is. And again, before I get too far, I did want to remind this is being recorded. We will put this on our YouTube channel. So for whatever reason, if you can't make it or you come in late and you think you've missed the entire presentation, we are recording this. Well, we will put it on our YouTube channel as well as on our webpage that most of you are familiar with on our M4A website, as well as we will be placing this in our newsletter. So if you are, potentially a new host agency looking to join and you've joined us today and you've missed some of the presentation, we can give this to you so that you can learn more about the program. So host agencies are public and nonprofit organizations that benefit from an expanded workforce that gives them the opportunity to improve services through association with the Senior Community Service Employment Program, or CSEP. CSEP participants normally perform a variety of tasks that may not be accompanied or accomplished because of a gap in funding, which I'm sure a lot of people are dealing with right now. Through CSEP, participants can be placed in a wide variety of positions, including daycare centers, senior centers, government agencies, schools, hospitals, libraries, landscaping centers. These positions and training assignments are designed to provide skills and experience to obtain future employment, but at the same time provides no-cost labor for the local organization, which again, right now is probably very vital for many organizations. The host agency is instrumental in the success of the CSEP program. Host agencies are typically 501c nonprofit agencies, community-based organizations, or government agencies like ourselves. By training in a local organization, participants build the skills and behaviors needed to be successful in obtaining a job and keeping it. In addition, work training in a realistic environment provides the opportunity to gain knowledge and feedback that will help CSEP participants be successful in the long term. And that's really our whole goal here, is to provide, not only from the realistic job opportunity in the community, but, our staff working with CSEP participants, as well as you guys, kind of provides those individuals with the skills to re-enter the workforce. And ultimately what we're trying to do here is secure long-term unsubsidized employment. So we have a short video here that really painted a good picture. It's a very short video. It's about 4 minutes long, but it's an organization. It's a CSEP program administered through the Goodwill in South Carolina. And I thought it was a really neat kind of experience for us to watch. It kind of shows different angles of, this individual success story from the company, from he himself, as well as the CSEP program. So I'm going to let this play real quick and catch up with you guys at the end.
CSEP is an acronym for Senior Community Service Employment Program. It is a training and employment program for seniors who are 55 years and older.
Hello, Mr. Root. This is George from Fish Window Cleaning. How can I help you? Yeah, how does today sound?
Mr. George has been with us for about the previous year and a half. In that time, he started as a CSEP participant, just taking on administrative tasks with fish window cleaning. But his strength was really in customer service, and he really proved his value to the company just thanks to the rapport he has with his customers and his ability to relate to people, which he's been very successful at. It's really helping to grow our business by leaps and bounds.
At Fish, George did like several administrative things, and they noticed that he was a really good participant that would lead to a really good employee. So they reached out to us about hiring George.
Before I got involved with Fish, before I got involved with CSEP, I was working for a multinational company. When I lost my job because of injuries and lost everything, my self-esteem was so low, it was scary. I was spiraling down. And when I talked to the people in the program, they helped me understand that they could help me rebuild some of my self-esteem and be able to be gainfully employed.
Through our partnership with host agencies, participants are able to train and gain new skills. These skills help them find jobs, which is important to them. Many of them want to feel that they still have a commitment or they have services they can offer to the community, which they do, and CSEP helps them do that.
we worked with the CSEP program and actually transitioned him into a part-time permanent position here with Fish Window Cleaning. And George is now our salesperson, where his primary role is to go out to our customers' locations, explain the benefits of Fish Window Cleaning, explain the services that we provide, and show them the value and what they're paying for, and then recruit them as customers.
So what I'm about to do is to do the estimate for that building there, the bank, it's First Reliance Bank. When you come around like this, you notice things like how many windows there are, how many doors, because we have a different price for different parts of it. And it doesn't hurt to check all that out. When I got involved with CSEP, it got me more involved with other people. Some people call me an introvert, but every now and then, of course, I do crave being around people. The thing with CSEP is it's strengthened my ability to be around other people. Having people around that can joke with you and draw you out is one of the biggest pluses you can have. And for that, I will always be thankful.
Every year, we become more and more excited about the CSEP program because we know how it changes lives. So we're very optimistic that the program will continue, that we'll get better, and our participant population will increase, and we will continue to make lives better for those people who choose to work with us in the CSEP program.
So I thought that was a really great video to kind of tell a simple story about success within the program. And one of the things that sort of was intriguing to our CSEP staff yesterday was that's actually a for-profit company. And as you saw in the description, much of our partnerships involve nonprofits and government organizations. So it seems as though there are exceptions occasionally if they're, like, for example, if there are hard areas that are tough to find, maybe nonprofits and government agencies, there's a potential there for us to even partner with for-profit companies. And so we're sort of looking into a little bit of that now. But for the most part, for our area, we primarily partner with nonprofits and government associations or faith-based communities, et cetera. So if you're interested in becoming a host agency, what are the steps in that process? And so we have a website. If you go to m4a.org, you can click on our services page, and then you can kind of scroll down to senior employment, or you can simply follow this address there at the top. It's m4a.org/service/senior-employment. And that will take you to our CSEP program page on our website. And towards the middle of the page, you will see an application for a host agency. And so there's an information that ranges from the representative's name, who's applying, the organization's name, to the type of organization, the location, et cetera. And if you fill out that information, it comes directly to our CSEP staff, and someone will follow up with you to kind of review over that process and make sure that we have everything we need. And it's a pretty simple process. You can also come to our office at 209 Cloverdale Circle in Alabaster, which is directly across from the Saginaw Post Office on Highway 31 between Alabaster and Calera. You can also call us locally at 205-670-5770, or again, visit us on our website. So some of the examples they reviewed over at host agencies, I added a couple more here. Again, daycare, whether that be adult daycare, child daycare centers, senior centers, thrift stores, local municipalities, government agencies, different departments, libraries, venues and tourist locations, retail stores, community resource organizations, faith-based organizations, education organizations, whether it be a college or a high school, elementary school, and many more. So really the sky's the limit. Primarily what we focus on, again, is 501c3 nonprofits or not-for-profits in whatever capacity, as well as government organizations or faith-based communities. Kind of the process that we go through with a host agency sign-up is what we call a host agency agreement. And this is really the full extent of what we have, as far as signing up for the program, this is sort of the biggest portion. We have, it's a pretty simple form. I think it's about 4 or 5 pages at most, but half of that is really just additional information for the host agency to know. But this is really the meat and potatoes of the agreement here. And especially for those who are on the call now that are current host agencies, this is a very important piece of paper that we have to have in order for us to provide services at your location. Each year, we do what's called a recertification or a new agreement for our host agencies, as well as our participants. And then this section here, again, it just kind of certifies and specifies who you are as an organization and gives us the contact information. There's also an additional page after this that reviews over the supervisor, who the supervisor is, what their hourly rate is, and we'll go over a little bit more in just a few minutes as to why that's important. But to the current host agencies, if you have a host agency agreement and you're not sure if you have one that's currently up to date, be sure to reach out to our CSEP team, and we can make sure that that gets corrected, because like I said, we definitely have to have these on file because we are audited both from the state level as well as the federal level. And this is one of the requirements that we have to make sure that we have in place whenever we're trying to take care of business throughout the year. So that leads us into timesheets and in-kind donations. This is really the other big responsibility of a host agency. Once you get on as a host agency and you're providing the job training for a participant, participants have what's called a timesheet that they turn into us. The yellow there kind of that we've highlighted kind of shows you the things that the host agency and or the participant themselves fills out. We always recommend that a participant fills this information out themselves because it's part of the on-job training skill building process. So that's always something that we encourage. But you see there, it's just a weekly, or excuse me, a pay range, which is usually the 1st to the 15th and then the 16th to the last day of the month. And this is just a timesheet that kind of reflects that. They put their service hours there on the left-hand side, or if there's, federal holidays or training that we're doing with them, there's a different column for that. Now, the most important piece of this, outside of us, providing this proof and payment to the participant, of course, is the far right column, which is the host agency supervisor hours and days. And so this plays a massive part in our what's called our in-kind donations, or our local match requirements that we have to meet as far as the grant that we receive for this funding. A piece of that is us agreeing to have our local community participate by donating some of their time. And so the way that we capture a lot of that is through our supervisors with our host agencies. Now, if you're like most of us, you probably think, well, I'm not supervising that person every second of every day that they're here, but in some capacity, you are there, or someone is there overseeing that person, answering questions, and you're readily available if and when there's an opportunity that person may have a question, and you're in some capacity, you're supervising that person. And so with that being said, we do encourage that supervisors do put down their time that person is there, whether you feel that it's the full 8 hours or if it's 4 hours of your time. Any little bit of that in-kind donation does go towards our goal that we're trying to meet. And that is based on, like I mentioned earlier, the last portion of the host agency agreement goes over our supervisory hourly rate, and that it's based off of that. I believe I'm probably misquoting this, but I think we can count a certain percentage. I think it's up to 20% of that time value that the supervisor is donating to our service and to our community. And so it's very vital that our supervisors try their best to put down the time for that. Now, I will like to specify that we can only count times for those who are not federally funded. I believe that is correct. Courtney, unmute if that's incorrect, but I believe it's for non-federal only. So if you're at a situation like the VA, for example, and you're receiving federal funding, we cannot count that supervisor's in-kind donation. However, for those of us, in other segments of the community, we can. So definitely, if you have any questions about that specifically for your organization, again, you can follow up with our CSEP team, and we'll kind of go over those at the end, who those team members are, and they can definitely help steer you in the right direction there. Timesheets are really, we'll go over a little bit more in just a few slides, but timesheets are very important, not only filling out correctly, but getting them in on time, not only for the timesheet, but also, like I said, the in-kind donation, because we track that. And all that has a kind of a process that we do that we'll go over in just a couple of slides. But in-kind donations continued, although there are no costs to participants in the CSEP program for organizations that we partner with. M4A does encourage in-kind donations from host agency partners. This recommendation is around $1,000 per participant, and this is on an annual basis. There's no requirement for this donation, and any size donation is welcome and appreciated. But again, it's not a requirement. These donations are used to help fund portions of the program that are not otherwise covered by the grant requirements, and helps our staff reach our required local match. Again, there are, I'm sure many of you are very well, especially those who are associated with a more of a government-related entity. A lot of times grants are very specific in what you can and cannot spend money on. And we are very limited in some of the things that we try to do, especially with our outreach for the CSEP program. So, in-kind donations help offset some of those costs that we accrue as well, to help us get the word out about the CSEP program. Some of the common issues that we're seeing, and again, we have a chat and a Q&A feature. So if you guys are seeing any issues at your host agency, you have any questions, feel free to put those in there and we'll review them towards the end. But there are probably more common issues than we're noticing that maybe haven't been brought to our attention yet. But these are just a few that we've seen that we're hoping that we can help out when we can. The biggest one being telling CSEP staff about a situation too late, and then the problem's escalating to the point where there's a lot of hostility, there's a lot of people that are mad, and just we're kind of coming in on the tail end of the situation. And we just want to make sure that everybody remembers that if our staff is unaware of an issue, there's no way that we can help resolve it, especially if it's too late. We try to work with our host agencies and our participants to make sure that there's a fun work environment, peaceful work environment, and productive. And if for whatever reason that is not a good fit and that's not working out, our CSEP staff can work with that provider, or excuse me, with that participant, to maybe reassign to a different location. And that might be a better option for both the participant and the host agency. The other big one that we have is late timesheets, and it goes beyond just the timesheet being turned in late. It kind of has a chain reaction here. And so for those of you who are not really aware of how our payroll process, and really this is a simplified version of it, I really trimmed it up here, and it takes a little longer than what it looks like on the screen. But in short, participants complete their timesheets, they submit them to their supervisors to review. Those are then fax submitted to our CSEP staff, whether it be through fax, through rapid fax, through email. And then from that point, our CSEP staff has to review the timesheet. If there's errors, obviously we have to get those corrected. So that could take some time there. So obviously, making sure that the timesheet is correct when it's submitted to us always helps to save time. And then from that point, the timesheet's prepared along with the other, I think we're around 130 or 140 participants. So there's quite a few timesheets that we have to combine, put into our software, make sure that we're tracking, and then it's finally submitted to our fiscal department so that it can be processed and payments can be paid, whether it's auto deposited, mailed, whatever the case is. So this looks very simple, but this is anywhere from a 2 to 3 day process, depending on how early timesheets come in, how late timesheets are coming in. And so by rule of thumb, our timesheets are due the day after the pay period ends. So if a pay period is from the 1st to the 15th, rule of thumb is that it's due on the 16th. Now, with that being said, if the 15th falls on a Friday and the 16th is on a Saturday, of course, we're likely not going to be working on timesheets ourselves until Monday. So it would just be due the first business day after that. Now, if you're in a situation where your office is opened on the weekend, and that's typically how that participant gets those timesheets to us, then by all means, you're welcome to send those on Saturday. We will get them. We're still, we'll jump on that process the first business day that we come back. However, trying to get those to us immediately is really the best way to make sure that those get, we get paid on time, everything goes through smoothly. Now, if you're in a situation where you've got a participant who works, say that the pay period is the 1st to the 15th, but their last day of this pay period is on the 13th. Well, if you know that person and they know that they're done for the pay period, they can go ahead and submit it to us early. That's fine. We've ran into situations before where that's happened, and then a participant works another day in the payroll period, and it just kind of confuses things a little bit with a whole new billing sheet. So it's always best to submit them after we're done with the pay period, but trying to get those in a timely manner are, of course, the preferred method. So what I would recommend would be having the participant fill these out as they go versus waiting, to the end of the pay period, which I'm sure, it's natural for humans to do things like that and kind of wait to the last minute, but it's always best to do it as they go so that when we get to the end of the pay period, it's easier to get wrapped up and get turned in. So consequences of late timesheets, the most common is going to be a delayed payment. There have been many circumstances in the past where people will turn things in 3 and 4 days after the pay period, and we've already submitted billing and the process has already been gone through. That in turn, we have people who are relying on us beyond our office, so we have to make sure that we're giving them, plenty of time, ample time to be able to complete this to get submitted to our CSEP participants. Not only does our fiscal department handle payroll for our CSEP team, we also have a staff of 70 plus people who they're also handling payroll for as well. So we try to be very, very observant of their time and appreciative of their time and try to get things turned in as smoothly and as consistently as possible. There's also a risk of program participation. If we're in a situation where timesheets are consistently being turned in late or not at all, or there's constant issues, whether it be from the host agency or the participant, there's a risk there of a termination of participation, both from a host agency standpoint as well as a participant standpoint. We do our best whenever we're interviewing and preparing our CSEP participants for a job role to make sure that they're aware that this is a jobs training program. But in theory, it's also a job. You have a responsibility to do here. And every lesson that you learn while training is a real life job training experience. So, that is something that hopefully if everyone's going to make an error occasionally, but if there's consistency of things being turned in late, that's an issue that needs to be looked at by not only the host agency, but also our staff to make sure that the participants are aware that, it is a jobs training program and we're very lenient, but it's also preparation for the real world when it comes to job preparation. So we have to make sure that we're doing things as it would be in the real world. We also, obviously this slows down our CSEP staff, like I mentioned, as well as our fiscal department. And in all honesty, it really slows down the host agency too. If you're having to take more time to sit down to correct issues or get things in for the second time, then obviously that's slowing down your staff as well. And that's the last thing that we want is to have a host agency this is more of a burden than a benefit. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that our host agencies are not only community partners, but they're benefiting from this too. So each pay period, this has been something that's been, some people are more serious about them than others, but we are required that if a participant is turning in a timesheet, they're also supposed to be seeking or submitting, I think it's at least 5 job search forms. This sheet, I think there's 2 sheets that have 5 entries, and they just use this to show that they're, at least researching jobs, looking and kind of showing the process there of them actively trying to build a resume, looking for jobs. Because again, the ultimate goal for our program is for long-term unsubsidized employment for our participants. So if you're having issues with that and your participant is very anti-job search forms, then definitely make sure that our CSEP staff is aware so that we can take care of that on a case-by-case basis. This is a big one, host agency holidays, and really it's case by case for the most part, but these are the observed federal holidays for the 2023 year. Of course, we're kind of getting towards the end of the 2022 season. Currently, we have on our same webpage, I've uploaded yesterday, this schedule of the observed holidays as it's observed by the federal government. So many people sort of abide by the same schedule, but there are many organizations who do not. So host agencies should submit it when you're submitting your annual application or agreement. You should always submit an annual schedule of closed office dates for the organization with your agreement. I've been working on that this morning, and our goal is for next year for that to be a part of the actual host agency agreement. So that's not something that you have to submit separately. But what this results in for our staff, it's not us being nitpicky about things or micromanaging. It's really, it boils down to our staff whenever we're doing our timesheets. If a participant puts that they're off for whatever reason, a holiday, then we have to make sure that host agency has that scheduled on their annual listing of dates that they've stated ahead of time that they're going to be closed, because that's the only way that we know how to compare those two. As a rule of thumb, if a host agency is scheduled to be open on an observed federal holiday date, participants should adhere to that host agency's schedule. Infoway will not pay for missed dates that a host agency is open and a participant is scheduled to work. Now, with that being said, if the participant would like to rework that date within the pay period, on a case-by-case basis, we're typically okay with that. But if a host agency is scheduled to be open on a federal holiday and that participant is scheduled to work that day, we would like for the participant, to treat that as a normal job and adhere to the policy for the host agency. Because we do partner with about nearly over 100 different host agencies. So it will vary from host agency to host agency. Again, here's our contact and address information. We're currently in the Alabaster area, Saginaw area, across from the Saginaw Post Office, down 31 between Calera and Alabaster. We did set this up for an hour-long presentation. I don't think we're nearly there. We've got about 24 minutes or so, but we did leave time for questions because we kind of figured, with so many host agencies, so many supervisors, that we did want to leave some time for some questions. We do have the full staff on today for CSEP team. We've got Ms. Courtney Durden, who is our program director. We also have Ms. Deanna Thompson, who is the assistant director of the CSEP program, and Ms. Tracy Garrett, who is one of the program specialists for the program. So if you have any questions, it looks like we have one that just came through. The question is, I just want to clarify that the participants can be paid for holidays on the date that the agency observes, even if it's not the date of the holiday. Courtney, Tracy, Deanna, do y'all want to unmute? Do you have any feedback on that? And I can repeat the question as well.
I'm just looking at the question. You want to read it out? Okay,
the question is, I just want to clarify that the participants can be paid for holidays on the day that the agency observes it, even if it's not the date of the holiday.
Okay. No. It has to be on that federal list that Jeremy mentioned. It has to be one on that day. Like, for instance, let me think of something that probably 2 days that people. Okay, it's like, say we just finished up with Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving fell on a Thursday. Some agencies were still closed on Friday. However, we only could pay for that Thursday, not that Friday of your host agency being closed. They only pay on the holiday or the day that the holiday is observed. Yeah, but you can't.
And again, that's a case-by-case thing. So if you, for the most part, that's the general rule of thumb of what Courtney just stated. But if there's, if you have any questions about this on a case-by-case basis, of course, you can always reach out to our CSEP team and we can do our best to kind of get with you on that information. And not only do we look at it from our perspective as far as our in-house policies, we also look at it from the Center for Workforce Inclusion's policies and guidance that they give us as well. And again, that's why it makes it so important and so helpful for us to have those dates ahead of time so that we can work with the host agencies and with the participants oftentimes before that occurs, so that we can kind of get that question answered ahead of time. And so we're not trying to answer this 3 days after payroll is due. Do you have any other questions? I don't see any in the chat or the Q&A currently. And again, while we're waiting, if there's any other questions, this is being recorded rather. We're putting it on our YouTube channel. We will put it in our newsletter, which brings me to my next point. If you're currently not on our newsletter, we are trying to get better about sending out a newsletter, an email newsletter we try to do it weekly, but sometimes it may be twice a month, maybe once a month. But that newsletter includes a wide range of things from events to announcements like this meeting today to previous meetings, recordings, other in-house programs that may have had resources that we find that are helpful for our community. We place all those in our email newsletter. And to get on that newsletter, you can email either myself. I'm Jeremy Raines. I'm the Older Americans Act Manager. My email is JRAINES, Raines, at M as in mom, the number 4, A as in apple.org. Or you can also reach out to Ms. Courtney Durden, who is the program's director. That is CDURDEN, C Durden, at m4a.org, and we can get you on our MailChimp newsletter. Looks like we have another question that came through, or a couple. The question is, if the city pays for us for 2 days off, does our person get paid for both? Again, I think that kind of goes back to the same point that Courtney was making. Courtney, do y'all have any feedback on that?
Yeah, it is. If you get, like you said, the city, like the example like I gave for Thanksgiving, I know, even our agency, we had off Thursday and Friday, but our participants that we have here, we can only pay them for the holiday day, which was that Thursday. So if you get 2 days off, typically it's just going to only be on that federal holiday. And I'm just going to give you an example for Christmas. Christmas falls on Sunday, which is observed on Monday. So Monday, we can pay them for that holiday.
So it sounds like it's really centered around that federal holiday and what that is designated as. And remember, these individuals, it is a jobs training program. At the end of the day, they're not technically employees, nor, especially in the case of salary employees. So that, I think that kind of goes back to, that's a benefit of a full-time job as a salaried employee, is the benefits of having weather days or whatever the case is. So, or extra holidays. So, and again, that's why I think everybody is going to be impacted differently from this for the most part. And really the most complicated portion of this is where we're currently at now. It's always Thanksgiving. It's always the Christmas holiday and that extra day after, and how those fall during the week. So it really just depends on, the organization, and it's really best to work with our CSEP team on, one-on-one basis on that situation. And then another question we had was, can we go over the in-kind donations again? Absolutely. Because that is a very important portion of our program. It helps us continue the program, and it kind of helps us cover things that may not be covered otherwise through our grant funding. All right, so on our timesheets, there's a column out to the far right that says host agency supervisors hours/days. And again, I will speak from just my experiences as an employee. I have a supervisor. I've always had a supervisor. That supervisor is not always constantly monitoring me, but in some capacity, that supervisor is always available for me to ask a question to. Therefore, they're supervising my day-to-day task. That's how we view this. That's how it's been recommended that we view this as well. So if you're in a situation where you've got a CSEP participant who are doing clerical duties, for example, 2 rooms down, and you're there with that person all day and you're overseeing that person, technically speaking, you are there supervising that person, providing them with access to, answering questions, helping them in any way. So you're technically there supervising that person. That is based on, when I mean supervisor, that's based on your host agency agreement as well. There are multiple lines on our host agency agreement that list who the supervisors and responsible parties can be at your organization. So it doesn't only just have to be the specific supervisor that's listed as the primary. If there's another person there that is, overseeing that person, then you can put that time down too. What I would probably recommend in that situation, because there may be a difference in pay rate, I would probably make a little note the blank side of either this sheet of paper here, so that we know, or kind of indicate what days that there was a different supervisor. But for many of you, it's going to be the same supervisor each time, and that's fine. You would just put your hours on the right-hand column of what those hours were that you helped supervise that person, and then our CSEP team will do the rest from there. We have a spreadsheet and software that we're tracking this donated time that our community partners are providing, not only to us, but to the taxpayers that are providing funding for this program through federal and local dollars. So that free time or donated time that you're giving back to our program helps us not only extend this program and push it further, but also it helps for us as an organization to meet our requirements for our grant funding. So that's really the simplest form. You're just filling it out along the right-hand side in that last column, the amount of hours. And then, like I said, once you submit it, our CSEP team will kind of take it from there as far as tallying, coming up with the value of that time. Because again, we're not able to capture the full amount of time. We're only able to capture a percentage of that supervisor's time. So if you donate 100 hours, we're really only able to capture, I think, about 20 hours of that. Because I think it's 20%. Courtney, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's about 20%. And then that's really that's the hardest part for you, is just putting the number down. We will take it from there to calculate it, put it in our spreadsheet, and report it back to the federal government. So that's, if you have any questions beyond that, of course, you can feel free to ask our CSEP team directly on case-by-case basis, and we can definitely make sure we get that figured out. The other portion of that is also the annual recommendation per year. Again, this is a no-cost program for our community partners. However, again, there are portions of the program that we don't have specifically grant funding or a line item available for. One of those primarily being like marketing and helping to do outreach for this program. There are other things as well, but that is really the biggest portion of the program that we have a kind of a difficult time trying to provide funding for. And some of our in-kind donations can help with some of that, or some of the other costs that may come up. It's a recommended amount, but it's not mandatory. You don't have to. And we've had people who have, they may have 2 or 3 participants and they give less than that per participant. That's fine. Any dollar amount goes into that same value line item for our in-kind donations, because our in-kind requirement that we have to, our local match that we have to meet on a annual basis, it has a dollar amount attached to it. And so that's why it's important too, with your host agency agreement, to put down your hourly or annual, I think it's based on an hourly rate that you receive as a supervisor, because that's how we're able to actually capture the value of your time. We don't really care as a team or as an organization of what you or your staff makes per hour or per year. It's merely there just for us to be able to capture the value of your time, because we do think that your time is very important. And again, that is only for non-federally funded organizations. So if you're at the VA, or if you're like at our organization, for example, we receive federal funding, then we can't count that time. This is only for non-federal organizations. So faith-based, nonprofits that are private, that are not federally funded, that's really the only way we're able to capture it. We have another question that says, participants are paid for holiday day on December 26, 2022. Should there be hours on timesheet for the host agency supervisor hours? That's a good question, Courtney, Deanna. I would say probably not, because the person's not there for that day. So I would say probably not. I don't think it would be a huge issue either way, but I would say it's probably best to avoid that, since technically that person's not there with you. Courtney, did you have anything to add to that?
That's correct. If it's a holiday, they're not there, so they're not there to supervise. So we don't count that time.
Unless you're calling them and telling them how to cook correctly on Thanksgiving and you're supervising that process. Otherwise, it's probably best to not count that. I don't see any other questions that have come through. We are getting close to our 11 o'clock mark. We've got about 12 more minutes, so we do have time. And again, As a reminder, this is being recorded. We're going to put this on our YouTube channel. We'll share it in our newsletter, which again, we encourage you to join. If you're not on our newsletter, it's probably the best way that we have to contact everybody all at once, especially for events like this. Typically right now, the way that we try to get in contact with everyone is through our newsletter as best as we can, as well as calling the numbers that we have, sending letters to the address that we have, which sort of brings up a good point. If your organization submits a host agency agreement in the beginning or end of our program year, which kicks off July of every year, and your organization's changed phone numbers, you've changed locations, you've changed supervisors, whatever, if there's any type of change from what's on that form, that's what we go off of for the full year. So if there's any changes to that, please make sure that you contact our staff so that we can update our records, because we want to make sure that we get the full representation of both your valued time as well as access for us to be able to communicate with you through correspondence. So we do encourage that as well. And one thing that I did not mention, many of you might not or might be on Facebook, but we do have a Facebook page as well. We're trying to get a little more active on there too, but it's just, if you just search M4A CSEP, which is SCSEP, again, M4A CSEP, you'll see our logo pop up, and that is our Facebook page. Overall, we're much more active on our actual M4A, main M4A page for our parent agency, but we do post things on occasion like this event on our Facebook page. And again, if you're not familiar with CSEP, CSEP is, again, the Senior Community Service Employment Program, but it's administered through M4A, which is the Middle Alabama Area Agency on Aging. There are multiple agencies across the state that administer this program on behalf of the state, on behalf of the Department of Labor and Center for Workforce Inclusion. Our sister agencies might not be associated with a area agency on aging across every region. However, this program is offered across the entire state. So if you have, family, friends, partnered agencies that are in another region of the state, and you would like to reach out to them, you can always reach out to us and we can get you in contact with that organization, or you can just simply, search the CSEP programs on Google, and it'll kind of lead you to the right direction. But again, we're always available to kind of steer you in the right direction if you're looking to partner with other agencies. We have the unique opportunity for our agency to be housed within our aging services organization. So that's a perk of our program, because that's the community that we're serving on a day-to-day basis, really throughout our whole entire organization. So, well, if we don't have any more questions, I haven't seen any come through. I don't know if there's been any emails or not, Courtney, Deanna, or Tracy, but I think we've covered much of everything. We appreciate everybody coming today. Again, we're hoping to do this on an annual basis. We know from a programmatic standpoint that if you guys are introduced to us one time, two times, and we get paperwork and now you're on the program, well, between that and another year, things can be forgotten. And so it's always helpful to have a refresher. And of course, we're always here to answer any questions. Please don't think you're bothering us or hesitate calling us or emailing us if you have any questions, because we're always here to help answer if there's ever any confusion about our programs or our expectations or processes, etc. So I'm going to get us back to our contact information again. There we go. So again, we're in Saginaw. There's our phone number, our email address, or excuse me, our website. And we don't have a question. We have a thank y'all. Have a wonderful Christmas. And you guys as well. Have a wonderful holiday season. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. And again, if you guys need anything, feel free to reach out to us. And thank you for all that you do for our participants, our community, and our staff. We look forward to another year of partnering with an awesome set of host agencies. So thank you guys, and have a great rest of your day and a great weekend.